And then I'm gonna go back to okay. So here we are, studying this out, checking this out, seeing where this is going to lead as we expand the conversation to different platforms. Going from, see, conversations and navigating to perform to mutual sadness. I see. All right, so this is what it looks like on this computer. This is what it looks like as I'm streaming Zoom into YouTube. I'm hearing feedback from my end, so that tells me that there's another mic. Where to figure that out now? All right. So all I need to do is see who's coming in with me right now. So see how that goes. The lighting looks pretty good. It seems as though I'm able to connect Zoom to YouTube this time around to have this conversation. You know, wait to see when people come in. We have about 15, 20 more minutes before we start. I'll be right back. Let me just get a nice cup of coffee. And we will be starting this conversation shortly. Hello, can you hear me? Mute myself, I need it. Let's see. Let's just start panel. And your mic, you're on mute. I can't see you. 7. Hi, there you are. How are you? Can you hear me? You're on mute. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Hold on 1 second. You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself. You cannot minimize Zoom and you're on this meeting. Oh, okay. So, I can't hear anything.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yes, I can.
I had to figure out how to unmute the mic.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Right now, I'm just testing the system, the streaming system from Zoom to YouTube. I don't have many subscribers in either because those weren't platforms that I was using before.
Okay.
I've used them through other people and other collaboration, but I've never fully used it for myself. So this is a test. So that way that when my mentees or those that I coach or my friends that I want to help out and they ask me a question, I'm able to tell them, I tried it. This is how you need to do it from Zoom to YouTube. I like the look. It tells me when other people are coming in right here. So it's a little bit more comfortable. I don't have to switch through screens. So I think this is pretty cool right now. If you like, we still have a few more minutes before we start. We usually come back here and we chit chat. Although right now it says live streaming, I usually edit this part out.
Okay.
But make sure you got your tea and stuff like that because I'm gonna go grab me some coffee and I'll be right back. Okay, I'll be right back.
All right.
Back. Got a nice hot cup of coffee. I can't even sip on it right now. I'm gonna turn on my video. And
so show me how it normally. I'm trying to, because there might be so I might have to turn the camera off for a second.
Okay.
But how do I do that?
On your screen, on the bottom left, should be a mute, a mic, and a stop video. You want to stop your video?
Oh, okay.
It's a click on and off button. You click on it, there's a slash mark through it that it stops the video. You click on it and it turns it back on. Do you want to test that?
Yeah, hold on. Touch the screen. Okay, I see it. Okay.
Yeah, and also your mic. You want to turn off your mic and turn off your video if you're not gonna, or you need a minute,
Okay. And so, okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. Nice cup of coffee. Thank you for joining me for a nice hot cup of coffee. This is one of my favorite mugs. I'm a Christmas baby. Not that I was born on Christmas, but around Christmas. I love the winter. Yes, I am sad to see it go. My favorite cup to use for coffee just reminds me that every day is a present. As everyone is coming in, please tell us where you're from in the world. We always love to know where our listeners are coming in from. It's always a nice surprise to see. Thank you so much. Grab yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. We'll be starting shortly. This is an open Zoom invitation for those that want to join us just to have a casual conversation. These trainings and series and video recordings that we do are under our collaboration of Grief Soul Work. Grief Soul Work intensive trainings. What it is, pretty much we all have work that we do on this planet. There's always something that we do as a provider, professional, or caregiver, right? And then we're also human beings. So there are things that go on in our own personal lives that we grieve or that we are grieving, right? Layers of an onion or not. Yet we still choose to continue to do our purposeful work out on this earth as best as possible, regardless of what we're going through, So by us getting together and putting this type of videos and trainings together is to strengthen and empower those providers, those clinicians, those caregivers doing the work. Although it is open and inclusive to everyone that might be put in a position or that will be put in a position to support someone else to navigate through grief, loss, sadness, and bereavement. Once it touches us, it always touches us. It's with us, it's a constant companion. But there are ways to make it open and to celebrate, It'll take us a moment, some of us anyway, to see these things as a celebration, as a point place for growing. But at least to me, I can only speak for the experience of myself. That's what it seems to me. Grieving the last person you were yesterday or who you were before COVID struck, and grieving the job that you had before, or grieving the life you had before, the life in love, the relationship, the friendships. Some people are not friends anymore, considering what's been going on in the world. Are you vaxxed? Are you not vaxxed? It's truly a divide, among some people. Nice cup of coffee. Yes, primos and primas, it's Bustelo. And if it's not Bustelo, it's Starbucks. Love that coffee. So that's pretty much what it is today, folks. A group of us getting together, professionals, providers, caregivers, healers, just humans getting together, speaking about the ways that, we can navigate. We can navigate grief, loss, sadness, death, bereavement, together and also alone. We have a few more minutes. So please grab your cup of coffee, cup of tea, and come join us. More friends are hopping in. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Nicole's back. Let's see, we have my daughter on here. She's just gonna be watching, but thank you for joining us. We have Joey here. I don't see your mic on or your camera, so come join us whenever you have a chance. We still have a few minutes before 6 o'clock, and just bring your coffee and tea and let's have a conversation. Let us have a conversation. Get comfortable. I'm adjusting over here. So what are you drinking today, Nicole?
I like those flavored seltzer waters.
Ooh, okay.
And there's one, it's called Aha.
Oh, yes. Another friend of mine put me onto that, and my daughter drinks that. Yes.
So you what?
I'm letting Lauren in, but go ahead, let me know. So what flavors of this aha water?
So I love all of them. This one that I'm drinking today is the blueberry pomegranate.
That's a nice one. Blueberry and pomegranate. It took me a while to learn how to eat that fruit. I'm gonna tell you right now. The pomegranate.
I don't eat it. You know,
Oh, wow.
I mean, I think I've maybe had it once or twice, and somebody had to pop the seeds out for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a hack on Pinterest one time that, you bang the seeds out. But still, it's not something that, to me, I always had difficulties, but I do enjoy it every now and then. Okay, to everyone coming in, I want to welcome Lauren. Lauren is one of our collaborators and partners in this project of New Soul Work. Lauren, I would like for you to meet one of our speakers for this evening and a friend of mine. We have history together, Nicole Moore. She is a social worker by day and a fantabulous chef at night. And
hello. I will be live with my actual face in a minute.
Okay.
Welcome. We're glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely.
Welcome to everyone.
Yep. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
So we have Nicole drinking I have my coffee. And I was taking some notes, and then I just sat back to think of how all the other recordings and trainings have gone, and they've always led with ended up with or led with just a casual conversation. Especially now, spring is coming. Everybody's waking up. Things are going to be growing soon, and this puts people in a nicer mood. You know how they say the seasons shift the moods. In winter, you're in hibernation, and it's cold. Right? We should be like the squirrels, all huddled in, relaxing, chilling next to family. And
I've already been one of the squirrels. I had my apron down and
and he was a squirrel, and he hit some of his acorns. He just didn't know where they are. The beauty of working at home with children still to this day. And you know what? It became a convenience for me, and I love it. And getting back to this beautiful weather in spring, it's going to have everybody wanting to be out and about and regaining some of the stuff that, they've lost in the past 2 years, if they can. Before everybody came on, I was just talking about the different forms and ways, that we do grieve certain things and how we can navigate some of them with compassion and mindfulness. So we have a few more minutes before we start. I'm going to settle in my little one so we can have a conversation without video games in the background. And I'll be back in a second. We'll see how this goes. Hi, Joey. How are you?
Ooh.
Your picture looks nice. Your lighting looks nice. I like it. You can hear me?
You're talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Joey. Yes. Say hi. How are you?
Hi.
Nicole, Joey, Nicole.
Hello.
Right now, all of this, I'm testing the streaming from Zoom to YouTube. I don't have many subscribers in that space because those weren't platforms that I was using before. And normally when I do this recording, it's not only for that learning aspect and for me to share with you guys, but also so we have something to look back to when we do certain topics and make it bigger and better the next time around. Just to show people that you can start right where you are. Before I came on and trying to fill up that empty space, when you wait for people to come on, I was just sharing about the different forms just the different ways that we are the providers, the caregivers, the healers, right? The companion in the space. And we still experience things ourselves, whether we're grieving the person we were yesterday, the situation, the relationship, right? The circumstance, whatever that is, when we feel some kind of loss or anything of that, we are grieving in a sense, but we still get up and do what we have to do as far as our work is concerned. So I just wanted to set the space for that, you know, that yes, we are professionals and we do what we do, but we're coming here today in this part of video and training, just casual conversation. We specifically invited Nicole to come in, and then I invited Joanne to come in, Joey, and she does her presence manifest. And it is something when we had conversations that it's important to do on the day-to-day. It shouldn't be something that you go to someone once a month or once a week, like, hey, I need some healing. This is something that you should connect with someone that's a professional in that space, or not even but has a certain a level of love and expertise to specialize in doing this form of healing work. That is something that we need to do every day. I mean, especially now since what we went through with COVID and how it was, stay away, don't do this, don't, you know, the separation. We need to know that we should be present in what we currently manifest every single day. Because even right now, as we're all gathered here, we're still manifesting in our own ways, silently in our thoughts, right? With the feelings in our heart and just the work that we do. So we're here at the top of the hour, and I just wanted to set that tone because, you know, I gave everybody this title like, oh, we're going to be talking about, you know, the trauma a child feels when they're removed from their home or removed from that space of comfort. But, and even though that's the topic, let's just be mindful that we all grieve and go through stuff. So we all have something special to share in this space when it comes to helping each other as professionals or just as friends and companions to a stranger in the space of somebody grieving, whatever that is, whatever that is. So please take a moment, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves, and let's get this casual conversation started.
I think that, okay, so I'm gonna go first, I guess. My name is Nicole Moore. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I work with Child Protective Services, foster care, and adoptions. And I live in Virginia. And so living here, things are kind of spread out. So, you know, I could be in one city, let's say Norfolk, at one point, and then have to go to Virginia Beach or have to go as far up, like to Danville area. So, so that's pretty much, you know, what I do. I have been working from home since COVID started. So I've been home for 2 years, and it takes a long time to, especially when you're, you know, working with children that have had some kind of trauma. There was so much trauma happening at one time. It wasn't just COVID. COVID was what we were calling it, but it was other things, separation anxiety. You know, we typically do home visits, and I have to go into the home and trying to figure out how that was, you know, what that was going to look like. You know, the parents that you work with have their own sets of anxieties and traumas. The children do. And now we're all at home. And now we've gotten so comfortable that it's going to be some more trauma when we have to go back into the office. And I tell my my director all the time, if I have to go back to the office every day like I used to, we're gonna have a problem. I don't see myself trying to return back to that space. So, but that's me. And so I'm thankful for the invitation. I'm looking forward to getting a lot of insight and hearing how this is going to go, what everybody else's feedback is.
Thank you and welcome, Nicole. Hi, Joey. Can you tell us a little bit about you and welcome to space?
Thanks for the invitation. I created and teach a applied energetic philosophy that I call Presence Manifest. And in a nutshell, I walk people through transformational processes while helping them to disengage from their habitual tendencies and lean into wonder and possibility. It sounds really broad, but I disengage and disintegrate triggers is probably a better way to describe it in this context. So when somebody comes with trauma, in the way that I view it, is that trauma is connected to an energetic template that's connected to a moment or an experience. And there are actually ways to energetically unravel that and dissipate it so that it does not affect the decision-making processes in the moment. So it allows people to step out of the traumatic time and make decisions that have nothing to do with the trauma, which then create new habits where the trauma is absent. So with children, not so much experience, although in theory it would work for anyone who applied it. The few children I have worked with have been with their parental consent. And I have a way also in prayer and spiritual way where I set those energetic disruptions up in such a way where if it's in alignment with their highest self and their soul, it'll be received in the most easeful way for them, since they're not typically conscious enough of the impact of their energetic experiences. So theoretically, it would work with children of all sorts of situations, but it would also be really helpful for the parents in these situations because they could bring themselves into presence and be way more available for any transitions of children here and there. So I can see the applications of it because transformation work is transformation work.
Thank you so much. Hi, Lauren. Thank you for coming back. Tell us a little bit about you. We met Nick, Nicole, Joanne, Joey, and this is Lauren.
First of all, Joanne, we're gonna be friends. I love the way that you said that you disengage triggers and traumas. Like we need to talk. So my name is Lauren Bishop. I'm the founder and owner, of course, of Ethan's Hope Anencephaly. Used to be Anencephaly website. It's ethanshope.net now. I have been in the birth and bereavement arena for 9 years now. I've lost 2 children, 2 boys, one at 8 weeks at a miscarriage many years ago, and one, our 4th child, in 2013. He had a fatal neural tube defect of anencephaly. We were supported by a group physically who came in and supported us, but also acted as a liaison sort of between us and the hospital. They asked me to train with them 4 months after the loss of Ethan, and I totally jumped on it. I just knew that's what I want to do. And then 5 months after the loss of Ethan, so a month after my training, I supported a family who had the exact same exact same diagnosis as Ethan of anencephaly. And I supported them along with my mentor, who was the one who supported us. We walked out of the hospital and I just kind of looked up at the sky and thought to myself, okay, this is my why. this is my why. And I got emotional outside because I didn't get emotional inside. I didn't lose it. I was emotional because I wasn't emotional, and I was emotional because I was so shocked that I was able to do it. And I think it all boils down to it will not ever be my child, not ever be as painful as my own child. Anyway, so I also support all families in all situations and all gestations. So any prenatal or life limiting or fatal diagnosis, stillbirths, miscarriages, you name it. I'm in Georgia, so I'm linked with the huge Georgia Midwives Facebook group. I also have my own Facebook group where I connect bereavement and loss doulas who are certified with any agency, any certifying body, with families. Believe it or not, there's this horrible competition that goes on between organizations and the doulas that they certify. And that is I'm better than you because I trained with X, and I'm better than you because I trained with Z. And the purpose of my Facebook group is to completely eliminate all of that nonsense and have the reason why we all became bereavement or loss doulas come together, because we want to find families support faster. So that is my big goal right now, is to continue finding them and mapping them out and finding family support.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lauren. You're amazing, and thank you for all the work that you do. It's not easy work. And as mentioned earlier, even doing that work and doing the work with the etiquette, with the love, with the compassion that you have, excuse me, and your reason why, you all and still have to take care of yourself and the things that happen to you behind the scenes, right? Because even in anything, we see it most with celebrities and people like that are always on TV, but we forget that in our little world, we are the celebrity of our family. We are the celebrity of our community, the people that we touch, the heartstrings, right? And even though these are the different types of purpose work that we do, we still have to take it, we still experience something. So, with that in mind, I hope that if anyone that does see this on the replay, feels that they are just like us in this space and needs to express, what they experience, to feel free to contact one of us. We're all on Facebook, or to leave a message in the comment, because, moving forward to navigate this, we do this collectively. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Yavelka, I would like to add also that the group that I have is called it's called Bereavement Doula Listings. And that's for anyone who is certified, but also if someone is kind of grandfathered in, if they've been working in this space and they have the experience, I'm not going to discount someone who knows what they're doing, because if they can go in and support, they can go in and support. But also, yes, the group that I have is a safe space for these doulas to totally debrief. They can do it, quote publicly in the group. The group is a private group, or they can contact a fellow doula or myself. I am known for being a doula to doula the doula. I have many doulas who come to me to debrief, who have witnessed some kind of trauma from, any kind of birth or loss. So yes, Yavelka, I'm so glad you mentioned that absolutely, please reach out to myself or Yavelka, anyone that is in that space that you can trust, you can share without sharing confidential information. And you can always find me. My personal information is on my website. It's ethanshope.net. Don't walk through that journey alone.
Yes, thank you for that. There's no need to walk any journey alone. We will just to get into the topic a little bit. I remember being invited into a space talking about they're doing a training for doulas and domestic violence. And I was thinking, wow, that's interesting, because some of us that are doulas or birth workers or any type of healers and professionals probably been on the other end of that domestic violence, you know? So I found it interesting. So I partook into this training. And then I started thinking, what do we do as doulas if you're in a space and you realize that it's unhealthy for the person that you're taking care of? And you're not really a mandated reporter, but you are, because, you know, I still wear that coat from when I used to do business and work way back when. So I'm like, if I once was a mandated reporter, I'm always a mandated reporter. You know, if you see something, you say something, especially when it comes to children and elders. You know, we get caught up sometimes. Women, you know, it happens to them too. It happens to those that identify however they wish to identify. There's always one person. And I'm not saying it to laugh, but I'm just saying, let's be real. You know, one point or another, we have experienced something like this or seen something like that. Mm-hmm. How would we navigate that? You know, to get back also into the topic of when a child is removed, like if you're the person that reports now, you know, and they listen to the doula or they listen to the energy worker. I mean, they're gonna listen to you, Nicole. We know that. This is the space that you hold. And then what? If we're here not to cause further trauma or further harm to anyone. Anyway.
Well, I in the spaces that I, you know, am in, sometimes they either love you or they hate you, because I'm that mandated reporter. I'm the person that, you know, and so my own triggers, as Joanne was talking about, is sometimes just going to the grocery store, because I have such a wide group of people service. So it could be, there's that bee that took my kids from me kind of thing. Or it's, oh, you know, love to see you, you know, blah, 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 blah. So I just would say, just to kind of answer your question, is everything is a case by case basis. You know, it's a lot of allowing them to be comfortable in their own way, comfortable enough to share. So even if they are angry or confused or, you know, just not having a really good day, it's for me to just try to make them comfortable and, you know, in any kind of environment. But it's still definitely you know, case by case. Try to get as much information, be as empathetic as you can. I mean, because I don't think that people realize that, you know, social workers like everything that they do, especially as a mandated reporter. So I may not want to really report you, but if I'm out and I see a mom grab a child too hard, you know, that can put me in a whole nother situation. Or, you know, being verbally abusive, that's, you know, a very difficult thing to do too. And then, you know, trying to change the vocabulary, change the behavior, and people respond to change really differently. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was also going to say, for Joanne, I would love to be friends with you too, after this, because I would love to kind of still we always want to be better.
Mhm.
You know, we always want to be better. And even in cases of like domestic abuse, things like that, there's so many different scenarios when you come into contact with anybody that you can either identify, or there's just certain things that I still can't relate to, you know. But as a professional, you know, exactly what does that mean?
Yeah, I
You
guess
see what-
as a professional, they expect you to be able to relate somehow. They don't know how. They just think you can relate, right? It's like, well,
Right. And so like I totally understood what Lauren was saying about, you know, how she was supporting someone and trying to hold her emotions, and then went outside and then all the emotions come out, kind of thing. So, you know, because I get angry just like the next person, you know, so you might say or do something that might instantly, you know, so sometimes it's for me just to put myself in a better space, because that energy then goes into something else, you know, and people pick up on vibes. So even if you just like, you know, wake up not in the best of moods, you still gotta, you know, switch everything around, get yourself together, because you have a job to do. And that's even like being a mom. I'm a caregiver also for my mom. So you know, I hope you write books, because
it's yeah, it's a lot to be the center, like not the center of, like not the center person, but to be the centering energy in the space, when that's your like job, right? It's like you are supposed to remain rational and observant and witnessing, and yet
Right.
also be active and professional. You know, so it's like when you're holding that, you know, everyone says a lot like, oh, I'm holding space for people. It's not so much like you're holding the space for people, but you're really holding the center for a lot of these situations. And so for you to hold the center, you have to have ways to get centered in a minute, because that's your job.
Yeah. And sometimes it'll like I've experienced just with myself that I don't like to use the word you got to always be on or off, because then if you're not careful, there's still a level of humanity that you're going to have, because you're human. But then if you turn it off or turn something on, then, you know, that's suppression. And then you learn to continue to suppress your own feelings, because you're supposed to be supporting and servicing somebody else.
Right.
So, you know, and I just, you know, sometimes it's like you're playing a role. So you know, you're not a professional, you're an actor. And you can't do both. You know what I mean? So yes.
I do. Remind me later. I'm trying to like just take note, but there's the actor role thing, and then also the balance thing and the center thing. Because the center I can touch upon right now, so we don't get too far off track of our other topic. And then the role thing is like a whole other rabbit hole. But the center thing is, it's not a fixed point, which would actually cause you to compromise a lot and to act and to stuff. the center, because situations are fluid, you just have to remain in the center of the situation. So you are allowed to flow. You are allowed to ebb and flow with what's going on, and not have to, hold this fixed point of like perfection or idealism. You just have to be the most centered person in this scenario, which a lot of these situations are not ones where you could just be peaceful and calm in the middle of, because they're abusive and they're, the dynamics are violent or offensive, or they're even just like verbally irritating,
Yeah.
but you just have to remain the center in the middle of the situation, because that's the not role, but that's where you're putting yourself in, right? But you're allowed to, like, that center is fluid, just like every situation is fluid. So you tend to like stuff less when you're allowed to express within your center, around your center. You can move.
Thank you for sharing that, Joey, because just to in harmony with both pieces of the conversations that occurred before, with Nicole talking about the centering, and you're saying that you should be able to center yourself in a minute. And that's something that's needed in the work that we do, because things can go left real quick. Birth could turn into death real quick. Something that looks like a routine visit could turn into, oh my gosh, this is child abuse. The child needs to be removed like right now. And I'm in it, I'm getting triggered. What is that thing? That, because I wish sometimes I was Genie and I could go ding, 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 and be centered. And sometimes it doesn't happen that way. I'm caught up in the motions. I could burn up like a flame in 0 to 60 seconds when I see something that's injustice or something that, especially because that is my trigger. Now that I've experienced certain things, that warrior goddess, princess, Shira, Shaka Zulu chick comes out, and she's like, who needs to be, what pull do I have? Who needs to be put in what, some people can call it like the savior complex. I don't consider it like a savior complex. I consider it like, now I'm equipped with the tools and I know the people that I know that I can be able to help and assist in this particular thing. And also I experienced it. So I know when someone says, I'm okay. No, you're really not. I just have to have some kind of tact, finesse, you know what I mean? To do my work, but then also be centered. How? How?
I mean, I have my practice, but like I said, that's a whole
Right?
whole other rabbit.
But I love that you said that. She said, I have my own practice, because it reminds us we have to. We have to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a multifaceted, loaded question.
How?
How? And it, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so
But
many
isn't
layers
that how
to
you
that.
get hit? But isn't that how you get hit? You're walking around with your green and yellow basket, right? At test, get a test, you're doing your job. This is a good thing, you're feeling good, and then boom. That's why it's called crisis. That's why it's called emergency. And it's like, okay, now I'm in this whirlwind, like, I better have enough practice with myself and my mindset that I should be able to use that discernment and wisdom, right? To recognize it and be like, oh, this is gonna trigger, I need to get my head right and ground or say those words, my safe words, whatever it is, brace myself, right? People do their tapping, people do whatever it is. You have to be able to be just as fast to do that grounding.
Well, here's the thing too. I think that you said something that's very, very important. You said you should be able to have that discernment and that wisdom to answer the how. However, discernment comes over time. And where you are today is not where you were yesterday. It's not going to be where you're going to be tomorrow.
Mhm.
So, you know, again, it still can still be something that, you know, you're going to just forever be working on, you know, especially because the situations are not textbook. And I tell all the social workers that are in my departments, I tell them all the time, everything that they ever told you in college, forget it. You know, when you are in these clinical settings, it's not textbook. It's not textbook. It's not scripted. Now you might become familiar with certain things, and because you've kind of been in that situation, you know, or something similar to it.
Mhm.
Still, you know, but I love the word fluid. You know, you just really have to be really, really fluid, you know, Johnny on the spot a lot of times, and just ebb and flow, and just, you know, go with the punches and things like that.
Mhm. There's the two things that stick out was wisdom and back to a couple of answers before is disruption, right? So when you're trying to induce presence into a situation and get yourself or anyone else in the room into this moment and out of habit or out of experience or out of past understandings of things, the language that you use is super important, and having language that is going to be unfamiliar even to them is going to work better, because they're used to only certain responses. And so like disruption is how you sort of get the whole room into presence by disrupting, right? And you would think that sounds crazy because you're in chaos. Why would you want to bring disruption? But you want to bring disruption because the chaos is actually normal. Or, you know, for you, the crisis is normal. If it's a crisis situation for them, that's still normal for you because you deal with crisis. So you want to get everybody out of normal as fast as possible. And that's going to bring everybody into presence as fast as possible. And that's the space where you can use your wisdom. That's where you can interject your knowledge and your wisdom in that moment where people are kind of open to persuasion or to influence too. So those are two really big things, is disruption and wisdom. And in my line of philosophy, wisdom is different from knowledge, because knowledge comes from individual experiences, and wisdom is when you've integrated those experiences and you're able to just pull whatever piece from whatever as you need it. It's like more of like the kung
formula,
the kung fu middle way, you know, like where you're fluid and you can just go, oh, this from this situation will work and this from this other situation will work. But you don't get just pulled into the most like situation and start trying to apply everything from that one situation. You're able to pull from all your different situations and go, this from this one, this from this one, this from this one. These are the tools I need. And that's when you've reached a level of discernment and wisdom.
That also comes with experience. That also comes with time. That also goes with getting in some ish. You know, that's what,
right.
That's what it is. It doesn't come from like
you need experience.
Yeah, because I was listening to Nicole talking, and she was talking about from, you know, these technical settings, certain things occur, and she knows how to navigate these. I'm going to speak on the space that I was in before COVID hit. Before COVID hit, I was birth and postpartum doula. I was certified holistic, full spectrum and postpartum doula. I did childbirth education. I was putting into work and practice my Ho'oponopono ism, as I like to say it, you know, because we do need to forgive ourselves in certain things that we don't. Another layer to add on top of our triggers, right? And when I was hearing you speak, Nicole, I recalled a couple of conversations me and Joey had inside about brain spotting needs presence manifest, because we touch the part of the brain that other people, you know what I mean? Like we get in deep, and it's like, even still, I have to know my lane, because I come from a non-medical provider perspective. I still come in and bring these tool bags for the healing of your mind, your emotion, your soul. So I'm like that professional in that gray area, because I need to know medical stuff in order to provide the information so that they can make an informed decision, although I don't put in my opinion. Like, what do you think? It always has to be like, no, what is the best for you? So still in there, you know, like she said, in the technical settings, I touch technical settings that I have to be like, okay, I'm being that companion, I'm being that doula, you know, I'm being that, you know, practitioner, whatever it is that who I'm being in that space for my tool bags. But then I also have to sit back and recognize, oh my gosh, you need like a professional, because this is outside of my scope. This is not my own. Like, you really need a therapist.
Your networks. Yeah, you have to have your team.
Your resources.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people get stuck in that space. And when we do that to each other as friends, we have to realize that too, because some of us here are friends, but we're also professionals. And sometimes we have to catch ourselves, because, you know, you could be healing me, Joey. Me and Lauren could be collaborating, and then Nick could be, you know, counseling me like, listen, your family needs this. You know, that we can all touch each other. It's like that interloping circles, right? Interconnecting circles. And still have to know, like, wait a minute, this technical setting, now I'm listening to you, it turned from me listening to you as a friend to like gray area therapist. So it's like, you have to, once again, the discernment and the wisdom to know, but you won't know until you get into some issue where you acted like somebody's friend, they have a real issue, you try to give them advice, your advice ain't therapeutic enough, and you're causing damage and harm, and the person is still in the same space, and now you picked up some vicarious trauma from just trying to help.
Right, 100%.
Right, that's how it goes.
That's why I love having a network of coaches. And this, I mean, I love, it's like the more people you can connect with and interact with, the better whatever work you particularly do can be, because you have avenues for people to go from you. You know, like, okay, we got you through this. Now here's this great group that you can sit with and talk to other people who went through this. Like, here's a good, you know, and for you, you've already created even the next step for them. You know, it's like, hey, okay, we've personally walked through this situation, and now here's a support group for you, or here's another group that you can actually, you know, be of service, you know, to other people. And it's like, here's how you can connect to them. So it's having also that space out where you don't have to be everyone to everything helps.
That's it. Yeah. And I think that is what I was just thinking too. It's key to determine your own personal boundaries in a clinical setting. So there are some times where, you know, like Joanne, you were talking about, you know, disruption. Sometimes I am the disruptor. You see what I mean?
You have to be, because that's where presence exists, in the disruption of the pattern.
Well, I mean negatively. So, you know, or it's received negatively.
Yeah, received negatively, but always.
Right. And
because you're disrupting that normal pattern, that you're disrupting the pattern that is normal to them. So they're going to receive it negatively, because you're messing up my ish. Right. This is what I'm used to. Now you got your hands in my cookie jar, and now you're trying to tell me how to bake them. Like, step back now. But you're like, I need to disrupt this so that way I can get everybody in presence. Like,
right. Yeah. And then, you know, sometimes it's this humility. That's definitely a level of focus, you know, that you don't have to be everything to everybody, you know, but as professionals, you know, sometimes there's that level where people, that's their expectation of you. So they're expecting you, you know, to respond to what they're, you know, what's going on at that moment. And sometimes it's just got to be like, yeah, but you know, I gotta bring somebody else in, and I have to tap out, you know.
That's not my scope.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also that, Nicole, it's also that they expect you to, but it's in addition to that thought, it's more like because of the work that you do, you're gonna come across so many that the probability of you encountering someone that is gonna be outside of your scope is like 80-20. Like,
Right.
Because there's so much healing that needs to be done in the world, that when someone comes across to you as a friend, as a colleague, as your client, you know, as your trainee, your mentee, listen, I want to try to do the type of work that you do, right? Because they need the training and the work to like, listen, let me tell you what you're going to get yourself into. There are things that are going to be outside of your scope. The probability of you coming across someone, let's say, is like 20-1 when it's you and your work. The how many people is Joey gonna come across to you do energy work that might be outside of her scope? They might be, you know, fruity, they might be whatever it is, colorful, they might be sour grapes, whatever terms, you know, I'm trying to, whatever terms it is, you know, how when you come across the people that like, you're like, oh my gosh, but my friend, let me take out my little black book because I have a friend here that does virtual work. Or, oh my gosh, you're in North Carolina, I know somebody, just like Lauren said. You know, her space is, this is space to do the work. Like, we don't have no time to choose or pick and choose what color the rainbow you from, where you came from, who mentored you, who your ancestors are. Like, if you're coming to do the work and you need some support, and come see me, we don't have time for that other ish over there. So it's amazing. And also those that you don't know, even in this space right here, we're bringing 4 people that really don't know each other. Some of us do have history. You know, I have history with each one of you. I do not believe that each one of you have history with each other just yet. But look at this space right here. You're all in different spaces. That's the beauty of doing this virtual thing. That at any time we can wake up and be like, let's Zoom, let's talk, let's connect, let's bring other on. Because we could bring up to 100 people up in this ish. And if we go over that, then we'll bring on 300 and get some other cameras. But we have the beauty of doing this and then building up from there, right? The network. You're in Virginia. Where are you right now, Joey? In Florida, right?
Yep.
Okay. Lauren, you're down by the Georgia area, right? So
yeah, South Georgia.
You see? And now, right now, I currently hailing from the Poconos in the PA. And this is what we can do. And this is like, oh, okay, I know an energy worker here, I know social worker, this is, and then we know. That's the beauty of all of this. But us coming across somebody that's outside of our scope, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we have to ground ourselves. And then we have to be able to say, if they want the extra help, right? Because some people only want to talk to you. They don't give a farfanugan flying slipper. You know, they don't. They don't. I just want to talk to you. You're the only one that I trust. Even though this person is the professional space, like, listen, if I hand you off, you're in good hands. Some people don't even care, even if it's for free and insurance paid. They don't want to go over there. They want to go to you. And then you'll sit there, depending on what level of emotional intelligence, right? Also the discernment that you have within yourself to realize your triggers, and when you're becoming a helper and an enabler, right? You take on this. You take this on like, oh man, she needed my help, right? Because we're helpers, we're healers. It's like instinctual in us to be like, not that we're gonna come for the day, but I got an herb for that. I got a tool for that. I got a friend for that. I got a modality for that. It comes from that space.
Yeah, sharing.
Yeah.
And connecting.
Absolutely. So it gives us a lot to think about. And then when we have the newbies, the newcomers, those that are trying to be in this space to do this work, we have to be the ones to let them know. We're not trying to diss you, like you can't do the work. Do the work in the space that you at. But please be mindful and understand that you're going to be put in some ish. There's going to be some situations that is going to be damaging to you too, in here.
Right.
Be prepared. It might knock your socks off, catch you with your pants down, whatever terms you want, it's going to catch you.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
So make sure you buddy up. Make sure you have that other person that has a little bit more experience than you. Some people don't reach out because everything nowadays is, money, this, money, that, money. Don't think of it as money. Think of it as exchange in transactions, bartering, because really that's what you're doing. Different ways. And reach out and say, listen, I'm new at this. If I get caught off guard, can I please put you on my list as a bereavement doula? Can I please put you down on my list? I don't know if you do Reiki, Joey, but Reiki or what, you know what I mean? Like what are the things? Like I know you like a Dewey Decimal System. She handles a 107 2.3. This was handles. You got to know that stuff.
Yeah, and that's part of staying centered.
Right.
Is knowing where you end.
Right.
Where
you need to tap
where
out.
your limits are.
Yep.
It helps you to actually stay focused because you're just not floating around all over the place.
All over the place.
And anymore, trying to be this, trying to be that, trying to be like all you really have to do is be you, right?
And that's what makes you the super you.
Know where you end.
Right. Right.
And know where your center is. And it's if you can get that aligned, then everything else tends to work itself out. But now in a crisis situation, like I work with the coaches, I work with the leaders, I work with the social workers. Like I work with the people who are in those situations a lot more than me being in those situations. The situations I've been in that were traumatic were my own situations that I had to navigate myself out of, and people call me about a lot of traumatic situations, but I'm not necessarily in the 911, like in the trenches. I'm not showing up in the house during the fight. You know what I mean? I'm getting the aftermath. I'm getting somebody calling from the, detox center, from the street, from their car, I'm getting the after calls. So, it's like more power to you all for being able to act on the fly.
Listen, I know that when I come to you and we have those conversations, you're there with me, even though you haven't been there in the trenches, because you're experiencing it through me and my storytelling and the words that I use. When you're entering my sacred space, or if you're holding my, how everybody uses the terms, when you're being present with me, because that's what the real ish is, being present with me. We're here. This is what I'm going through. And you're so right. I love that you said, be centered and know where you end. That, and my spirit was jumping up like, that's what makes you the superhuman, the super person, knowing that part, knowing that, and doing like a lucha libre. Your turn, now you jump in.
Now I have to call 911. Now I have to, we have to hang up and call someone to go there now.
Or dropping somebody off somewhere. Like you need to be here because you cannot be left alone. How many calls, in the middle of the night, and I'm not gonna say how many, but the suicide calls, they're no joke. And it's like, isn't there a 1-800 number? Like, people do this all the time. Oh, well, I haven't connected or vibed with the person on the other line. It's like, what is going on with the person on the other line? Are they doing the healing modalities to center themselves so that they could, disrupt whatever habitual things that they have so they could be good to be a 911 responder right about now? Or, whatever that is. We are interconnected. We are interconnected, and we have to know that's the superpower right there. Knowing what is your limit before you tap out, knowing your level and having that humility, being humble about it. because the next time you go through this, then you'll be leveled up. You
Right.
can't be all the things right now and have all the things.
But
Yeah.
I think that it's difficult. I mean, you guys, let me know what you think, but I think it's also difficult because you're now not just, you're not just one thing, we're females, so we're very emotional. It's very easy for us to be sympathetic and empathetic at certain things. We can also, be too sympathetic. And, then you recognize that, this person is codependent, and they only want you. They only want to be around you. And you got to be like,
Listen, you just gave me
Can't.
a flashback of when I was learning how to swim, take the swimming test to be a lifeguard. And this was in Park Lane in the Bronx. Hold on a second. They were teaching me in the pool in the back of the building. And the major instructor was like, when you go, and I think Lauren is familiar with this because Lauren is an emergency responder. When you go into the pool and you're going to go save somebody's life and they grab you a certain way, you're going to drown with them.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to break that nose.
That's right.
You heard it. Sometimes you got to be like, oh, I'm hurting you so you can let go of me so I can save the both of us. Because if
That's
I let
right.
you talk to me, we both dying up in here. We both
Yep.
drowning. We both will not be here. Both of us are going to be 911. We're going to need 911. So
Right.
Thank you for that. That's what came to me where you would thank you for that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to sometimes. There's a good line in the Araya Mountain Dreamer poem, The Invitation. And it says, like, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but you have to basically be able to disappoint someone else to be true to yourself. And once you get past that, like once you've done that a couple of times where you can, and then the next line is something like, when you do this, right, you have to face the accusation of betrayal, right? But so someone's going to tell you that you betrayed them because you're sticking to either your role or yourself or your soul or whatever it is that you have showed up to do or showed up to be. Sometimes we got to disappoint people in order to be that fully, in order to be the best of that, right? We have to disappoint people. So yeah, it's like sometimes we have to hurt a couple of feelings or bruise a couple of egos or whatever.
Ruffle a couple of feathers.
Yeah, rustle a couple of feathers, like, but it's just to stay truthful to like the bigger truth.
What a tough task. What
Bigger
a tough
truth.
task you ask of the people pleasers, Joey. That's a tough task to ask of people pleasers.
It took me many years, many years to be able to do that. But I can successfully, not proudly say, but I can like with great affirmation, I can do this now. I do not care who I disappoint or who I offend or whatever. If it's kind of for the bigger picture or the bigger piece, right?
I'm glad you say it now. You said, I don't care who and I'm like, I don't know if I always do it now, but I know that I can always do it better than I did before. Because sometimes I slip up. No. Different people mean different things to me. There's certain people that know how to work me a certain way. Whether it's this little 5-year-old, which is whether it's my 21-year-old, whether it's my husband, or sometimes my elders. I'm like, all right. And I know that I should be like, whoop, cut at the umbilical cord. Whoop.
Right.
So it's an ever, like, for instance, almost like healing, right? It's not a healed, it's a healing. It's almost like a learning all the time, right? A constant thing that's done every day so I can be better.
Yeah.
I honestly can. I have no I really don't. I have hit a level where I don't.
I love it. She's like, nah, I'm a master at this
No,
right now.
that's not
Something
like,
about
like
specialized. I hit a
There's-
99.9.
there's tact and there's diplomacy and there's ways to deliver things that you can not sugarcoat, but you can deliver them more nicely. But I really have hit a point where I know so far where my edges. I've pushed myself to every edge I have almost, you know, and of course they're still growing because I haven't had all the experiences of life that may push me further. But it's like, I know where I get, like, I'd rather walk away and not engage any further, because if I go one step further, I'm out of integrity. And I will not allow myself to get out of integrity to please anybody else, like, ever.
Okay, well then there you have
Amen
it,
to
folks.
that.
There you have it, folks. You have Joey's masterclass of push edges, where you can learn how to, with integrity and tact, know how to say no, cut the umbilical cord, and keep it moving with a smile on your face, releasing with light and love.
And
I'm
not
gonna need
feel, and not feel guilty.
I mean,
Not
I may
feel
still feel
guilty.
bad.
Or
You know, I might still be like, oh, you know, like, I had to do that, or I had to say that, or I had to be that whatever. But I'm not gonna go ahead and do something that compromises my integrity to
right.
make a situation feel better, or to, you know, be less turbulent, you know.
I was thinking, I
I
was
need to
having
go
this
shut my light on.
conversation. Yeah, I do too. I was having a conversation with a coworker, and like, as I mentioned earlier, you know, I'm my mom's caregiver. And so, you know, being here at home, you know, for these last 2 years, you know, I've gone from feeling obligated to now it's just like, you know, no, I'm no longer going to compromise my integrity, right? So I had a conversation with Yavelka a little while ago, and I was telling her I am ready to, like, get my own space, because, you know, we're in the same space, in the same house. And I'm like, oh no. And so my coworker was like, well, wait a minute. Are you serious? Like, you can't do that. That's your mom. And I was just like, yeah, but what I'm not, I recognize it now and I'm fine with it. I am not a caregiver.
Right, you're
And
not a 24-hour caregiver. You have
I'm not a caregiver, you know. So now that I've recognized that, you know, I can go back to being daughter, because I made that mental shift in my head. And like you said, I was taking myself past a level, thinking that I was obligated to do this and to perform a certain way and to overlook certain things, or, you know, not say certain things or what have you. But then that diminished my own truth. So, you know, there's the people pleasers, yes, but then there's those people that, you know, I'm the person that you say something and I'll feel guilty. You know, because it's like, well, you're the social worker.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, you're the social worker, or you're the child, you know, whatever the situation is. And sometimes it's just like, yep, I'm still gonna be that after I make this decision. But, you know, but so support and networking is really important, you know, when you're in these different, you know, spaces, because you have a gift that I don't have. And sometimes it's good to just come together because we're all coming from different aspects of what is it called? The diaspora, you know, coming.
Yeah, I can't say, I don't know the
Yeah.
Diaspora. I know what you're
diaspora.
talking about though.
Yeah. But it sometimes somebody else has to get the rabbit out the rabbit hole. Another rabbit can't help that rabbit get out the hole. Sometimes it's got to be the fox.
Yeah.
You know, or he still gets in holes too, but he doesn't get out. He doesn't get stuck, you know. And so, you know, having that myriad of people that you can just talk to and connect. The nucleus of what we all have in common is that, you know, we work in the realm of support and, you know, help and things like that. But then it's different. I was just saying, Yvonne, that sometimes, you know, the rabbit that gets caught in the rabbit hole can't get, another rabbit can't get them out. You know, so it's good to have.
Sometimes they gotta get scared by that coyote that's chasing them. You know, like sometimes that's what it is. But
Right,
it's whatever nursing is for you. Whatever is for you.
But also,
I'm sorry.
it seems to have taken a village to raise a Joey. So that's the other thing. Like I have some strengths and I have a lot of support. I have a lot of support for the other things that I'm not that great at.
Right.
You know? And I don't even say, oh, I'm not that great at it yet, you know, because I intend to learn it. No, I don't. Just like you're not a caregiver. You don't want to learn how to put an IV in, or, you know what I mean? It's like, there's things we're just not called to learn or master, but
Not
there's
if you're not called to it.
for all those
Right.
things,
Absolutely.
you know, and we just have to be humble and open enough to like make
Like you
community.
said that. There's a master to all those things. There is a master to all those things, but that master is not us.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
a good
okay.
point.
Make
Right.
friends with the other masters. You
And
know?
it's okay, you know, not to do all the things or not want to do all the things. Not all of us are meant to be caregivers or caretakers. But there's this stigma saying, well, you know, if your parents age, then you must, and you are, and you should. Or if it's an aunt or a grandparent. And the thing is this, to me, yes, be connected as a person in the family, depending on the closeness and the nature of the relationship, right? Because that's what determines how much you care, that connection. And then in some situations, you make yourself care because you're empathetic, sympathetic, and all the pathetics, right? Or whatever. And you don't have to be that person, but you can get the resources, right? We were talking about the people that we know, the Black books, the supports, get those people involved. And then at the end of the day, you realize your elder don't want that. They want you. They want you. So then you still have to be in that space navigating. Like, I know what you want, but I know what's good for me, right? Because I know that part that disrupts me, right? I need to know what will end me, right? Joey, like you said, that point of, no return, right? You taking me.
Yeah.
Well, Nicole, I was going to tell you that I absolutely 100% applaud you from the bottom of my heart for standing up for yourself and making that decision. And I say that from the deepest parts of my being. My grandmother was diagnosed with MS the same month I was born, a long time ago. And she said that I was her miracle baby because that's what kind of kept her going and not giving up and being depressed. And we were very, very close. And I took care of her from the time I was about 11, 12 until the moment that she passed away. I was holding her hand in the bed with her. And I took care of her all through my adulthood. Mm-hmm. And I want you to know that what you've decided on is totally okay, because you're absolutely right. I'm a former 911 dispatcher, retired. And let me tell you, that's something that you either can do or you can't. Just like being a caregiver, you either can or you can't, because that job, and it's a job, it requires so much patience. And that's number one.
That I
That is
don't
number
have.
one. And I don't care if it's your mama, your daddy, your cousin, your friend. I don't care how, and that doesn't mean that you don't love them. You know, I know you love your mother, but it's not for you. And that's okay. That's okay. And that's coming from a caregiver from as a child. I'm telling you, that is okay that you made that decision.
That's deep too, what she's sharing, because in the section of like with me and Ho'oponopono, I have to kick in that part right there and say, hey, it's okay to forgive yourself. Yes. It's okay. Don't hold on to it, because that's also part of giving the best care, knowing that it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's right.
You ain't gonna burn in hellfire. You know what I'm saying? This is not, you're not the baddest child or human being in the world. There's someone out there that's their purpose, that's their talent, that's their gift. You want out all the things. The ego want to be all the things.
Right.
The
That's why I
stigma.
applaud you. It takes humongous wisdom and humility to step back and say, look, I know there are so many perceived expectations on me, and I understand that this is my mother of all people, but I have to take care of myself. And by doing that, I am taking care of my mother. Because think about it, I know you've thought about it. If you had stayed in that situation and been miserable, you would probably become chronically ill. Mm-hmm. You would be sick from it. It would take years off of your life, and you don't need that, So I absolutely applaud you. That is such an unbelievably difficult situation, an unbelievably difficult answer to give. And I absolutely applaud you for standing up for yourself.
So I was telling my dad this conversation, and he was just like, well, you're the social worker. I said, for kids, not for adults, and I said, and he's looking at me like, it make no sense to him. And I was just like, I don't have patience for certain things in adults, but I have a lot of, I can overcompensate with the child, but, and so I had to recognize that just because I'm the social worker or the daughter or whatever, no, it's not gonna, I can't do it. So, and it probably would be different if there wasn't a sickness or an illness. If it was just, sweet old grandma, but she has an illness that causes her personality to clash with mine.
Absolutely.
If she can remember, right? Because I don't know if we shared, the situation that we're in is almost similar, except that, you're with your mom and I'm with my mother-in-law in earlier stages than where you are. And it gets to the point that she has, I'm married to her only son.
I'm an only child. So yeah.
So I'm the female in that space. And although I don't have the patience for certain things, COVID put me in this space. COVID made it that I couldn't go. First of all, I came here from New York, so I don't drive yet. I'm in the process of driving again, because being in the mountains with the trees, the lions, and bears on mine, you need a vehicle. So I'm going to be
Oh,
working on
goodness.
that. However, COVID, not only was I comfortable because I don't really go anywhere anyway. You know, I like to roam here barefoot, you know, garden, whatever, yada, yada. But COVID made it that now they got to stay here. Yeah, and they had the ability to jump in cars and go until the middle of it somewhere where it was like, keys need to be taken away. You need to be driven now because, you know, for some folks, just the situation of COVID put them in a downward spiral faster than they would have gone, even though they would have gotten there eventually, you know,
Right.
pre-COVID.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to be mindful. And then I say this because I didn't want to be this person, but Farfanugan tag, I'm it in this shiitake. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
now what? Now I not only do I have specializations in certain areas that make it possible for me to give a certain level of care, but it landed on my lap because where am I going to put who, where, what when everything was on shutdown and do what with whom?
Mhm.
Right.
And when could we have sat down as a family to make a decision when everybody had to still continue to thrive for us?
Yeah. Mhm. And that's where we also get the differentiation, like what was that discernment, right? Between
Mhm.
coping tools
Mm-hmm.
and transformation tools. In crisis, we need coping tools. We need things that can get us from, you know, point A to point B before we can actually insert change, insert transformation. So it's like, you know, there's this idea that we have, like, that we never cope or we're never codependent, you know, that's unrealistic. But when we're in situations, when we first get into them, when we're in a crisis, when the crisis falls on our lap, right, we have coping tools. And it's just those coping tools are only meant to get us to a point of centeredness, to a point of discernment, to a point of observation, and can step outside of the situation. And then we have to start applying different tools, like hiring different people, like bringing in a specialist, like doing this thing. And knowing also that's the other thing, is like knowing when to go, when you can go from coping to transforming, right? And I would imagine that working with children or trauma, you know, it's like, it's almost like first you have to teach people to cope a tiny bit just to get them regulated. And then you can teach them to change. Then you can teach them new things, you know, but some of it is really just getting through the crisis, right?
I like that you said that. You said coping, because a lot of people jump into, I'm healing. This is healing. And it's like, nah, sweetheart. This is not healing. This is coping. Coping comes before the healing. Like you need to,
in a crisis,
scan.
Yeah, in a crisis situation, or when something comes at you, you're gonna cope. Is, you know, it's like you get thrown into the pool. Those first couple of things could be coping. You know, it's like as you're getting up, right? Once you're up there, then you can apply healing, you can apply transformation, you can apply specialists. But to beat ourselves up for not going straight into change and spending the time that we need to get centered, that doesn't serve anyone, right? So it's like, yeah, you know, your mom is here. What you decided to do, like with your mother, or what you're going to decide to do eventually, you know, with your mother-in-law, or what you're going to decide to do with even like your group might get too big that you need somebody to manage it for you. You know what I mean? And like when, like, eventually we have to, like, we let go and we move into the change, but where we're the one holding it in the beginning, where it falls in our hands, like, it's totally okay too. We can't look back and go, oh, we should have done this from the beginning, because this wasn't an option in the beginning. Because in the beginning, you're coping. You're not in a state of transformation.
it's also
You're in,
that part of
you're
the
in a
not
state
knowing,
of like doggy paddling to stay alive.
right? In the space of not knowing, you don't know.
You
So
don't
you're
know.
coping. You're coping.
And then you can, yeah, and then you can,
And then you can
you
come
know,
to some kind of regulation, something.
right, right. I don't know where that came from. It was like a side thing, but yeah, there's coping tools and transformation tools. And I keep trying to bring it back to so when you said it was about, we were going to discuss children being removed, I was like, well, I'm not a social worker and I'm not a birth doula. I'm not a death doula, right? So where does my experience lie in this, right? And immediately I took myself and I thought, where does my experience lie in this? And I thought, well, I was taken, not out of an abusive home, but I was taken. And I was like, wait a minute. Every time I kept saying I wasn't, my brain, from my present state that I put myself in when I was like, I'm going to go on this call, was telling me where I was. It was like, well, I have no experience of this. And the first thing I heard was, well, your mom took you out of this house when you were 3 months old. Like, you haven't been with I wasn't with my father since I was 3. So she was in a crisis situation. She took me out of it. Right. And then I remember growing up and seeing my dad and my mother just miraculously showing up and plucking me from things. We could be in the middle of doing things and my mother would just show up and be like, time to go home. Right. Because she monitored his situation all the time and knew when that turning point was, from her own trauma. She knew, she could read situations and she knew when it was going to turn nasty. So she would let me be with him so we could form bonding and I could have a father. But she would come in and she would pluck me out of these situations right before something was about to be damaging to me. Right. I mean, really, she was amazing. But every time I said, well, I was never taken, I was like, well, how do I, get into this conversation? It was just like each layer was like, well, you were removed from a parent. And then I had to, not that I had to, but I got to grow up like in a single mother house. I got to experience what a stepfather was. Like, I had all these experiences because I was removed from a situation. And I guess it was just interesting to me because I didn't see that as traumatic because of the discernment and the centeredness and the focused love and the desire of my mother.
Right.
To show up and act as that person. Like, a social worker didn't come in and do that for me. Like, my mom did it.
Your mom was
the
your
anchor.
social. Yeah, it was your mom. She was the, in that case.
Yeah, right. And
she
so
fulfilled that role. Yeah.
Right. So then I was thinking, okay, well, what gave her that? Right. And what gave her that was experience, because she didn't want me to experience the things that she had experienced. And so she, and that's what gives all of us what we have. You know what I mean? Yep. It's our experiences and what we bring to the situation. And, but yeah, it's like trauma and kids, and then years, right? Like, oh no, I wasn't affected by that. Years of breaking codependency, years of learning presence, like years of all that. Right.
Of course, trauma and kids is trauma. Even, Lauren and I are familiar with this part, is trauma in babies, trauma that was brought upon in utero, pre-verbal trauma. Sometimes we're dealing with stuff as young persons, young adults, right? Older adults. And we didn't know, wow, until we come across somebody, right? That opens up a portal, opens up a memory, releases some triggers, something. And we're like, whoa, this occurred to me way back when. Because I didn't open up really until I got brain spotting. I went all the way back to a childhood trauma. Like, I saw myself as a child. And I spoke to this child in this experience to release the pain and the hurt that I was feeling at that time and moment that was with me. And I had a whole list of what I wanted to discuss. I was like, well, I want to work on consistency, and I want to work on communication. I want to work on my anger. And it was like, my brain was like, no, no, no. You're doing this healing modality. This trauma is what the body is holding right now, right? Because we heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. This is your body's holding this, and this is where you need healing, because the body knows where you need healing, and the mind knows how to do it if you just let go.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wow, you do. It starts from childhood. It starts from the baby. It starts from, because we've learned to understand in birth work world, and Lauren can correct me if I don't say it correctly, but your grandmother carries your mother's eggs that carries your eggs for you to be here, period. So you were here from like your grandmother, because those eggs were already in there waiting for you to be like, ta-da. So whatever trauma has occurred to her that she's aware of or not, her body keeps the score, would get stored somehow, viscerally, vicariously, whatever V you want to use, in your mother's eggs. When she's born, she's carrying that within her body, right? That already has your eggs in there, with whatever children you're having or not.
Yes, that's correct.
I have a question.
Amazing. Go ahead.
This is so fun. So you have those moments like you were like, ah. So how cool is it, right? Like, how cool is it that as adults, right? And like, as people who have positioned ourselves as support people in the world, right? And bringing it back down to the kids today, right? It's like you got informed birth mamas, right? That understand cranial sacral, that understand, the environment that you come out of the womb into, right? It's like, all right, so like the reduction of trauma that happens, like from our level of trauma that we're coming from. They don't have that, you know what I mean? But like, here's our level, right? It's like, okay, well, that level is reduced now at birth if we can incorporate these doula practices, right? And then for the ones who like, maybe skip that or don't get that and then end up in like a crazy situation, or have like a parent, dealing with addiction, or people who don't understand nonviolent communication, we have a social worker that comes in and it's like, okay, it's like, here I am to sort of step here and let's try to cap your level of trauma here and not let it get past this point where you're now this abusive person to your children, 15 years later or 10 years later, and it's like, and then here's this like as a person where it's like, okay, well, you can go through this grieving process and you can have this like traumatic thing happen to you, but how do we, address your trauma so that you're not then passing it to your other children, or taking that grievement of, one child and, not dealing with it or not having a support system for that. And then that's going to like affect your other children, right? So we're saving, it's like not saving, but it's like we're so capable of reducing the amount of trauma that these children can go into adulthood with, right? And then also to teach the skills, like that's where I would come in, to teach the skills from a young age of releasing trauma in simple meditation, simple mantra, simple whatever, so they don't accumulate, right? Like what a wonderful team for like humans of less trauma and more empowerment, but we all
it's
had
like trauma intelligence. This is
that.
not a CIA. This is trauma intelligence, where we create persons that are trauma aware, trauma informed, and trauma sensitive, so we don't cause further trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
And say that's a tongue twister. Say that 3 times as fast.
Trauma informed, trauma aware, and trauma sensitive, and trauma experienced.
Yes.
Yes.
Like that's the other thing, is we're trauma experienced and life happens, like birth happens, right? Your head gets squished, you come out to bright lights. Like trauma is actually part of
Life.
We're never going to have a trauma-free anything, but we can
Never.
reduce the amount of trauma, and we can teach the skills to release that trauma when it comes. And we can then teach the skills to not attach to that trauma as it passes.
Daily.
Right?
Daily. Because it's an always thing.
And that's the, and then we can get out of the, it doesn't, okay, so I like trauma informed, I like trauma aware, and I like trauma experienced. I have an issue when something is trauma based. Because if it's based only around the trauma, then we're just manifesting a whole lot more of it, because we're putting
you're
all
correct
of the
about that.
attention. So we have to be trauma aware. We have to be trauma sensitive, and we have to be trauma experienced. Or we
Right.
get to be these things.
To have them trauma informed.
To have them, yes, to have them trauma informed and trauma knowledgeable, but not trauma
just
focused, not
right.
trauma based. It's to help these little ones not have their trauma be at the center of their being, to have peace and empowerment and skills at the center.
Yeah, because that's the gray area right there. To not let it be trauma focused, because we even come across that as death and bereavement doulas. Because when you connect with someone, it's already trauma for them. And if they don't have the proper healing, that's coming your way viscerally and vicariously. That you have to be the one to be like, flag up, I'm trauma alerted.
Yes.
Right.
Alert trauma. Now I'm scanning the situation to be sensitive, right? So I can know how to experience this trauma, aware of my triggers, to help them be informed that what you're doing here, alert, intruder, is trauma.
Right.
That's a lot.
And so the eventual end goal or end point of this is to move through the
Shift
trauma.
the mindset, but shift
through
that mindset.
the trauma and arrive to a trauma-less space and experiences that are not focused, centered, or manifested from the trauma.
Right. To
I
shift
think,
that mindset and the energy.
Yeah. Like in my situations, I have learned to just try to change their vocabulary, because especially with children, they don't know what they're really in.
Right.
So, you know,
like I didn't know my father was an addict.
Correct. You see, they don't know. So you become that disruptor, but you know, everybody might just be like, okay, well, this is normal. You know, this is normal, and I didn't have any problem with this.
Yeah.
You came and upset all the eggs in my cart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You did it, because had you had not come, I was perfectly fine, you know, where I was.
I was
you
conditioned.
took me. Correct.
Yeah.
So you have to, and so and when it comes, because you know, you're working with the child, you're also working with the parent. And so the parent may not think that they're being abusive or whatever. You know, this is how, you know, so let's say now, in today's present age or what have you.
Are we still talking about the immigrant parent with the chancla that doesn't consider themselves abusive? The same. Because you said sometimes the parent does something and they don't consider themselves abusive. Like you couldn't, before my mom became a foster mom, you couldn't tell her nothing about how she administered discipline over here. And it be that chancla. And you can't tell me that she can't, you know, rear the child and not spare that rod, because she needs to use the chancla. Now, day and age, if you even, we can say it as a joke, but you got to be careful with the joke because that joke is not funny. You come out and be like, yo, I'm gonna put the chancla and make your butt red like a tomato. You in trouble now.
Yeah. And that's where I was going with it is, you know, we were all raised in different environments where discipline could be whatever it was. But now we have all these laws, you know, and, you know, no, you cannot, you can't use a belt anymore. You can't be like how your grandma probably told you, go outside and get me a switch. No, we cannot do these things anymore. You can, and because you cannot leave
No
marks or
belt,
bruises.
no belt, no spoon. And you got to be careful when you say that, because
Yeah.
with my background with the, you can't leave no mark and bruises, what kind of marks and bruises you talking about? Because the ones that those tools or those weapons do are exterior, because emotional abuse, mental abuse, that's, where do you see that scar? You see that scar in behavior and mindset afterwards. So
Well,
it's like, you can't do these things and not leave a scar. I'm just saying, you know, I just wanted to raise the attention to that. Because
well,
there's things that are done, because I remember being cocky once upon a time, like when I was growing up, my mom did things to me that was considered like Guantanamo Bay. I am equipped with skills to do things to you that don't leave a mark. You know what I mean? Like, and my oldest used to be like, Mom, that's creepy. And I had to catch myself, right? As you learn better, you do better. I had to catch myself because way back in the early 90s, that might have been cool and I might have gotten away with it because there weren't so many people knocking on my door talking about how you treating your children and your elders today. How are you treating yourself today? Are you on drugs and alcohol, Mom? Do you have any mental instability? You know, nobody was doing that.
Yeah.
So I used to tell kids, especially when I used to watch other people's kids, that I knew that their moms wasn't right. I knew that your mom left me left you at my house because she went to go sniff coke and be with the next door neighbor's husband's wife's mother, you know, type of thing. I know your mom left you with me because she's out. You know what I mean? Like, I knew these things. So to these kids, I used to be like, oh, I'm going to call the cops on you. I'm going to leave. You got to make it to the door and you got to make it to the phone. If you can't make it to the door and you can't make it to the phone, you're not calling nobody. Do that stuff now, even joking, and have one of these little kids call in and be like, my mommy said she's going to make my butt red like a tomato, and I'm not going to be able to get no help unless I can make it to the door and make it to the phone. Can you imagine that?
because that's how they call me.
Right.
And
Show up.
I'm a woman of color, because now, even though I'm light skinned in this system, I'm a woman of color now.
Yeah, but that's true. And so, and that's where that's where we are. This is, I guess, maybe the textbook aspect of what I do is we are trained to look for and respond to any scars, any bruises, mental, emotional, physical. But if we detect it in any way, shape, or form, now Child Protective Services gets called. Now we have to go to court because now we're working with the police. The police are going to do.
You're talking about Child Protective Services and then a report that's open for 30 days. Every single time. And then court.
Oh, yes.
Right? Because I remember one time, out of spite, I had the ex-wife and my ex calling CPS back and forth in my house in New Paltz, to the point that I just left the door open 15 times in 1 month. And it was 3 different ladies. I got to know them all well. I admire their professionalism, because even though I got to know them all well, and you know how sometimes you could build a bond of friendship and some information is released, let's keep it real.
Right.
You know, we talk about HIPAA and confidentiality, but sometimes in the nature of relations, it's like, let me give you the ex of this person, even though you're not supposed to know. I give them, these 3 ladies, credit for their professionalism and etiquette, even though it was unnecessary, but they apologized. We have to come every single time there's a call, and every single call is a 30-day report, which overlap. And I'm like, wow, the system must be clogged if this is false reporting, because what if one of those are real? We can't take the chance.
Right.
Right.
So that's why, this with this whole COVID environment, that's why it's so dangerous, because we're not doing a lot of house visits. But, that's one of the things when you do a home visit, because this case is open, before we leave, we have to ask the child, do you feel safe? Do you feel loved?
Some of them can't even answer that for you in that environment right then and there. And COVID made that worse. There is no way, like I think about certain situations that if you would have asked me, do I feel safe? I feel unsafe by you asking me that question, because just the mere fact of you answering that question is going to make my narcissistic parent think that I blinked too much and gave you a signal that something's not right up in here.
Right. Exactly. And so there's just a lot
It's
of
not
different.
funny. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because
I know
It's
It's
unbelievable.
it's just so
That's why it's
multi-layered.
Yeah.
So multi-layered.
it's so true. And, we're going by what a child says. So what about the child that's mad at mommy or daddy because we rolled past McDonald's too many times and you said no? We have food at home.
I straight up threatened to call CPS on my mother because she did not get me McDonald's one day.
But it happens.
I was that 6-year-old, spiteful, smart, intelligent kid.
Yes.
You're talking about 6-year-old. How
6
about
years
that
old.
spiteful 15-year-old that can't get emancipated yet from the parent, don't want to be there, and isn't old enough to be 18 and fly the nest? I'm going to call every time I want to go get laid at that stage. I want to go get high. I want to party, even though we all know it's underage. Hello. When kids are influenced by older folks or want to be older than what they are, they go and they do certain things that jeopardize you and your household with other small children.
Yeah.
And you know what? Every time they call, you got to show up like, are you okay, ma'am? Are the children okay? If there's elders in the space, are the elders all right? Is anybody here? Is there a gun in the house? Yeah, is anybody right? The whole.
But that's the thing, a long time ago, you could have the gun in the house.
But God forbid you're a hunter, because we can't be locked and loaded, but we got stuff at home. We're hunters. We got the crossbows, we got the arrows, and here you come making a phone call, wanting not to be in this house, false allegations, or true, right? Because nobody knows. Because you could be in the state of mind thinking that what I'm doing is not no harm and it's good, but by your reports, I'm being abusive emotionally, psychologically, and even environmentally. My home is not fit enough to have you here.
Well, ladies.
Yeah, that's
this is. Well, no, but I was gonna say my phone is getting ready to die.
Oh,
okay, well, thank you.
So
I have one question.
Okay.
Can I ask a question real fast? What happens when y'all get false calls? If you're able to prove that someone is calling in false calls?
We get that a lot. And that's what the house visits are supposed to be about. A lot of that is us working with the police, because the police are the ones that get the report, and then they'll call us, or sometimes there is like an anonymous tip line that somebody can call on somebody else. But that's why the case is open for that long, is we're investigating.
Gotcha.
It just depends, and that's why I say for me it's like case by case. A lot of times with children, now we're going to put them with a psychiatrist, that they're going to have to talk to. We're going to hook the parents up with like a licensed marriage
counselor.
Yeah. So there's and all these things, that's what they're giving us, this 30-day window.
Okay.
yeah, so that all the professionals, we put the resources together, and then the end result is, okay, well, I just think kid is just BSing, or, yeah, we don't, we know we were called, but we can just tell by the dynamics of other things. Police a lot of times recognize it right from the beginning, especially if you've got so many open cases consecutively. And it's, so it's a whole bunch of different things, and it should not escalate to the point where we're gotta go to court.
Right.
But
okay. I was just curious.
Can I have one question before your phone dies too?
Yes.
No, this is not so much a question, but just to set up like a next discussion or something. But this is the thing. If trauma is so, we already know trauma is like a natural part of life. It's like something that disrupts our growth, right? Something that makes a disruption in our growth or our peace or expansion, right? And then there's different levels of it, right?
Right.
I would love to have a conversation of like, since trauma is natural to being a human, how do we define the levels of trauma that are worth external intervention as a child, right? Because I'll deal with it when people come to me as an adult, and we can go back and do things. But where do we find those levels of what is the, what is somebody being codependent, and this is not for today because it's a bigger discussion, but like, since trauma is natural, since we're all going to have a level of trauma on some level, since we're all going to heal it through our lives, hopefully, or we're just going to have habits created around it, since it's part of the human experience, where does the level of a trauma become like high enough that it requires external, outside of the family unit, outside of the church unit, outside of the community unit intervention? And what can we do as adults to empower these children who hit these levels of trauma?
Lauren, I think that would be a great discussion for us to continue on, based off of your being, a retired 911 dispatcher, because there are things that would make her, say this, that, or the other. But my answer could be totally different. But typically, I would think, and I don't know, Lauren, if you can agree or not, basically, it's by the laws that's in whatever state that you're in. So here in the Commonwealth, because it is a Commonwealth, it gets a little bit deeper, but it's still, there has to have been a law that was broken for us to escalate it from a report from Child Protective Services to us actually saying, okay, this child needs to be removed from the home. That's why we have to ask them, do you feel safe? If they say no, we're going to immediately get them out of that environment.
Until you can figure it out.
And now, the police is going to be asking their questions. We're asking our questions,
That's a lot. And as I'm listening to this process, Joey, I'm even thinking about in the spaces that when we talk about it, energy work, brain spotting, all of that is necessary for that experience, period.
And for the people doing the interventions. Yeah. So wonderful.
Thank you for your time, Nicole. Oh, there you are. I was going to say thank you for your time. If you had to go, we understand, because we will continue this at another time. Usually we run this from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So if the other ladies want to stay on, we have a few more minutes if you want to stay on. But we usually do it from 6 to 8 because At times we have other viewers that pop on. We allow this Zoom link to be open for those that, want to exhibit some courage and come on and have a conversation, because the more the merrier. We have different perspectives. So we will be doing this again because this conversation is needed. This conversation is needed. You deal with grief every day. You deal with trauma every day. This is a part of the journey that we take on from the minute that we arrive in the womb. Life and death, birth and death, they're related. They're one and the same. Light and dark, one and the same. So this is a conversation that will always be had.
So we can add trauma acceptance. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. No, that's cool. Everything is perfect timing and purposeful. So absolutely we have to, because the more that we have this conversation, the more healing occurs in the spaces that we're in. Because the brain, we're learning this with brain spotting, we're learning this with your modality, Joey, about the subcortical and the amygdala, how it affects the trauma that's trapped there. This is something that it equips the brain to heal the trauma that you have that can be. Because some traumas are multi-layered, so they need 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions. And I'm saying sessions to be kind for providers, for the caregivers in that space. Because just being right in conversation of 2 or more, we're in church. In conversations of 2 or more, we're having intellectual conversations, debates. Just being in this space is bringing healing to a lot of people.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna go because I want to hang up instead of it hanging up, because then I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, I missed.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll see. I want to see you guys again. So
okay, we will do this.
Right. All
okay,
right.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
That was good conversation. It's important, to have it. And I was just thinking, even with Lauren being an emergency responder, we tied a knot.
Yeah.
It's in her genes, it's her blood. That's like her job, period. You can't get out of that emergency responder mode. You can't. I did it for a little while, and I let my paperwork expire, the CPR, all of that, right? You let it retire, but it's still in you. If you're passionate about this, and you're gonna jump like, oh, somebody needs. I was making a joke with you one time, Lauren, like, I know that it changed. Is it still like 30 compressions and 5 breaths, or is it just 35? Because it changes. You just have to be up on the modality. But I think every situation needs the energy work and the spirit work. It's needed. Anything, all of these things, Joey, you're making me understand all of it is a disruption to whatever we considered normal in the presence. Because what I'm doing up to this point right here is normal to me.
Right. And until you get new information, it's going to stay your maximum sort of cumulative capacity, right? It's like, this is what I know up until now, right? So you have to be open at some point. Something has to open you to receive new information so that you can have a new perception or a new experience or a new step.
Just like a child.
Yeah.
Just like a child experiencing what they just experienced. Something has to disrupt them until something else comes in to give them a new experience, because all they know is now. All they know is what just happened.
Yeah.
And us being the older ones, right? Or the ones with more wisdom in that experience, we should be able to say, hey, wait a minute. The child just experienced something that was a disruption outside of their norm. They should have not only the psychotherapist, but someone to do energy work, someone else to do, you know what I mean? Like the other modalities, even if it's art therapy, to get these emotions of trauma out, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. Because just having a police officer knock on the door with 2 other people that look like I'm going to take you away is traumatic, even though they don't. Now, when everybody knocks on the door that they don't know, especially the little ones, they're looking at the window like, they coming for me? Or some of the children that are raised to be parents of the parent, right? Mommy, what did you do wrong? Or daddy, what did you, how you have those adult like children? That's all, disruptive to them and trauma in some form or another. So this is a conversation that's going to keep going on. And I just look forward to the time where insurance covers us completely for the work that we do, because we're bringing healing and health and wellness to the community here and here.
Right.
which is the basis. To me, that's the basis.
That's why we all do what we do, right? It's like, if we knew, how many times do you say that? Oh, if I knew this, what could have been spared, or what could have been.
Yeah. Or now, right, that you do know what you know now. Now that I
Yeah.
know what I know, where's that balance where I'm not now being Jesus, right? And I'm rescuing everybody, or thinking that I'm your salvation. I come here to bring.
Well, that's why we teach. That's why we teach. It's like, that's why I want to teach. That's why I don't do in my own work. That's why I don't just do, I don't apply energy for transformation. Like I can do it energetically, but I'd rather teach people how to do it their own self. I can give them
to fish, right? Teaching them
I can
to
give
fish.
them the experience so that they know what it feels like, and they have like a reference.
Right.
But then I want them to know. I want them to know how to do it, because I don't.
No, you're on the right path with that, because that's what happened with brain spotting. With brain spotting, they said, in order for you to understand further what I'm saying to you, you need to experience it. Because once you experience, it brings a certain level of awakening, like, oh, that, or more questions. And then here goes the teaching. Let me teach you so you can take this further. Because sometimes people won't come in unless let me taste the cake, let me take a sip of the tea. They need a taster, the perfume, the testers. They need that. They need the experience. And then, then you can weed out those that are serious about taking this on as a training to bring it to the communities or to themselves. Absolutely. That's the way to go, with the training, the teaching, the coaching, the public speaking, all of that.
Lauren, I was just thinking, oh, you guys, how I get tired. When I get tired, I start saying it's all about a new experience, really. Right? So if somebody's having a traumatic experience and you're going through a grieving process, it's kind of also about honoring that experience, but adding other experiences. So that's not the only experience, right? If you're only in grief, right? Then when you come and you're being support for that, then they also have the experience of being supported, the experience of being witnessed, the experience of receiving compassion, the experience of somebody who has a similar experience. So like an experience of being related to or relatable, right? Or an experience of kin on some level. So we're kind of also just we're adding a different experience.
Yeah.
Too, right? It's not so much about healing the trauma. It's about giving more experiences that are not the traumatic experience.
Right.
So that the scales eventually tip.
Mm-hmm.
And so that the grief isn't the singular experience that they're having.
Right.
Right.
It's funny. It's funny that you brought that up, because I had taken notes and I wrote down in a delivery, like for a bereavement, when we walk into the room, we bring the disruption, and then we command the presence, and then we speak the wisdom.
Yeah.
So but you're right. And that's what bereavement doulas are supposed to do, is absolutely just change the energy in the room to not be so dark and dreary. And because I was trained that you focus a lot on the welcoming, and you completely separate the welcoming and the farewell, and make sure that those are honored separately. And so the physical things that we do, bathing the baby, helping the parents bathe the baby, because I just hold the baby and show them how to do it. And then I hold their baby and let them dress their baby for the first time, change the diaper for the first time, or put a diaper on their baby. And then I'll show them how to do ink, hand, and footprints. And then I'll show them how to do molds. And then they'll start to do them themselves. And then I tell everybody, you know, everything that my son touched, we kept. Well, so they'll keep everything, you know. So it's about, you know, letting them bond and become more of a whole instead of the three separate people, and letting them have those memories together, so that you're absolutely right, so that it brings a different experience to that grief, and so that it balances out a little bit, so that they look back and they're not just stuck with, oh, the day was so horrible. And I take pictures for them too. So I'll send them all the pictures, you know, so they have all those pictures and all those mementos. And, you know, I even have families that refuse to have the pictures right away. I still have pictures from 5, you know, 8 years ago. And these families have just not wanted them yet, you know. So anyway, but yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, we just changed the day. And I have that actually is one of the biggest vicarious regrets I have as a bereavement doula, is that when you're contacted by the family, or a friend of the family or whatever, and you explain to them, okay, this is what I do, and they're close to me and I can come and physically help, and you want to just like reach through the phone and say, no, you have to make them say yes, because they don't know what they're going to miss. They don't get it. They don't understand. But I do. I understand that they're going to miss out on this. I can make this day better, not so rough, but they just don't know. And they are like, you know, that person's a stranger. We don't know that, you know, for whatever reason. And I'm at home like crying.
I do that sometimes just on Facebook posts, because like I'm like,
yes,
if they only knew the possibilities that this experience could lead them to, you know, I'm like, you know, it's yeah, knowing that there is, we bring possibility to what is believed to be a fixed or predetermined event.
right.
Like, it is supposed to be like this.
Right.
So I will feel like this. Right. So what a beautiful service that you provide.
Thank you.
Goodness.
Thank you so much for this amazing conversation, because we can go on and on. It's almost like a 2-hour conversation is not enough, because we're almost at the top of the second hour. We have about 3 minutes to go from my clock. But we will revisit this again, ladies. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you share. And definitely, let's set it up to continue the conversation and to keep bringing healing to the communities. And to anyone else that will be watching this on replay, #replay, and tell us what your takeaways were and what else you would want to have heard in this conversation that we were having this evening. Just a casual conversation on how to navigate different forms of grief, trauma, and just how to bring the awareness of self-healing and self-care to yourself as a human being first, and then a professional caregiver or provider in the space.
Yes.
And with that, I say good night, my friends. Talk to you later.
Good night, everyone. See you next week.
Thanks.
Bye.